Hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to cover the biggest topic of Indian polity, that is our parliament. The most important topic I would say, and the topic जिसमें से बहुत से सब topics निकल करके आते हैं, right? So that's the Indian parliament. Now, this particular topic cannot be covered in one lecture, so it will be covered in two lectures. And the notes for this particular topic will be pretty bulky. I would say I would suggest about 5 to 7 pages of notes. Although in M. Laxmikant it is the largest chapter, but what we have learned is that we have to bring it down. We have to write the important things, right? Which we need to revise again and again. So 5 to 7 pages में आपको इसको completely finish करना है. Don't take it beyond 10 pages at last. मतलब not more than 10 pages. Okay, 10 pages is a lot for a single topic, but then इसमें कई सारे topics आ जाते हैं like speaker, etc. So that's why I'm saying maximum 10 pages, and we'll see how to go about it. Now in this particular class, we have 22 questions, and the rest of the questions will be in the next class. It is going to be a fairly long class, and you will have to make a lot of notes. So just be ready with your notes, your A4 size sheets, and I always tell you to make the notes on A4 size sheets, because otherwise you will be stuck in managing the registers, etc. A4 size sheets you can manage accordingly. So now, before we go to the questions, let's talk about what parliament means and how it comes up in the examination. Parliament is the legislative body of the union, right? It is the union legislature basically. We have the parliamentary form of government. So it is the supreme legislative body, right? We have the parliamentary form of government, not the presidential form of government. We have done the executive, so we know that the executive also comes from the parliament itself. Now, in the constitution, the parliament is mentioned in Article 79 to Article 122. So, from Article 79 to Article 122, we have the Indian Parliament. Before that, if you remember, we have the Indian executive, right? We talk about the president, we talk about the prime minister, we talk about the vice president, etc. And after this, we have the judiciary. So our constitution is created in such a way that we first cover the entire union government and the union, not just the union government, even the judiciary. So first we cover the union, then we cover the states. That is how it goes, right? So Indian Parliament, these are the articles. After that, just write down that in the Indian Parliament, what is included. There is Lok Sabha, which is also called the lower house, which is also called the House of People. Okay. The Lok Sabha is elected directly. So we give votes for the Lok Sabha elections. We do not give votes for the presidential election. We do not give vote for the Rajya Sabha election. So Lok Sabha is the lower house. Rajya Sabha is the upper house, also called the House of Elders, and it is supplementary. It can be compared to the House of Lords in Britain. We of course have taken the Westminster form of government, wherein we have two houses. But the third and most important thing is the President of India. Is the President of India a member of either of the houses? No. The President is not a member of either of the houses. But is the President of India a part of the Indian Parliament? Yes. Despite not being a member of either of the houses, President is an integral part. So please write President, part of Parliament, not member of any house. ठीक है, not a member of parliament. So president is not an MP. MP means member of parliament. Okay, not an MP, but an integral part. So in this way, we have taken up the American model of presidency. Even in although our parliament is inspired from the British model, but the role of the president in our parliament is inspired from the American model, because even in America, in the United States of America, the president does not play an integral role in the Congress. There, the lawmaking body is called the Congress. Fine. Now, just make very quick notes on the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So, when we talk about the Lok Sabha, the maximum members who can be there in the Lok Sabha is 550 members. Maximum is 550. Now, you would say, ma'am, right now there is 545. I am saying the maximum permitted strength of Lok Sabha is 550, not 552. Okay, why not 552? Because the plus 2 Anglo-Indians are not there anymore after 104th Constitutional Amendment Act. So earlier there were 2 people who were nominated from the Anglo-Indian community. Now they are not there. Okay, from the next Lok Sabha, they will not be elected. So there are 550 maximum members, and right now the current strength was 543 plus 2, right? But this 543 plus 2 mein plus 2 was Anglo-Indian, so the current strength would be 543. This is for the Lok Sabha. Now, for the Rajya Sabha, the maximum strength is 250. Okay, maximum strength is 250. Right now, the strength is 245. So, 5 members less. And within this 245, within this 250 as well, there are 238 people who are representing the states and union territories. Please get a lot of attention over here. States plus UTs. So here another question is solved, that are the union territories a part of represented in the Rajya Sabha? Yes, they are represented in the Rajya Sabha. So 238 members for states and union territories, and 12 members are nominated by the Indian president. That means the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister suggest the Indian president to nominate these people. From which domains? Literature, art, science, social science. Okay, these are the 4 domains. Now, please be very, very, very fast while making these notes. Don't stop to think a lot, because anyway, after this, you will be having, you will have to, go back to M. Laxmikant and make notes, complete your notes out of it in that sense, right? So, these notes should be very quick on your side. Now, in Lok Sabha, how we elect the people directly. In Rajya Sabha, we elect the people indirectly. So how are the people of Rajya Sabha elected? The people of Rajya Sabha are elected by indirect elections through proportional representation by single transferable vote. And who is the electorate? It is the state legislatures, right? State legislatures plus the legislatures of union territories with a legislature. That is, formerly used to be Delhi and Puducherry only, but now even Jammu and Kashmir would be involved. Okay, so I hope you understand. This is how Rajya Sabha is elected. You already know the process of single transferable vote, right? So I don't have to explain to you that. Now let's come to the next aspect of it, and a very important aspect of it, that in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, how do we actually take forward our transactions? That means, what are the tools, what are the parliamentary tools that are utilized? Because questions are being made from this aspect again and again, and we also have created a lot of questions, because from speaker and these kind of functionaries, people generally prepare that. But the question are the 0 hour kind of things, and the kind of questions that are asked, they are not prepared by people. So please write down that how you are supposed to memorize the devices of Indian Parliament. Devices of parliamentary proceedings. And keep these in the beginning part of your notes, because you don't tend to revise these very frequently. Okay, devices of parliamentary proceedings. So when you write your mains, you do mention them, these devices of parliamentary proceedings, as the ways by which the legislature maintains accountability over the executive. But that is for the mains. Right now, we're discussing it from the prelims point of view. So, the very first is question R. Question R. Question R is the first R of the day of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. So please mention it is the first R. Another thing, what are the kind of questions that can be asked in the question R? So there are three kind of questions. One is a starred question. One is an unstarred question. And the third is short notice question. Okay. So starred question is a question wherein you ask for oral responses. You don't want a written response. You are asking for an oral response. And whenever you are asking for an oral response, you can ask supplementary questions on it. Supplementary questions can be asked. Okay. The unstarred questions, they are demanding a written response. And because they are written response, no supplementary question can be asked. So let's say if I am a member of parliament, you are a minister. I am asking you, what have you done for the poor of this country? This is an unstarred question. So you will just give me a piece of paper. And these questions are not asked on the spot. Okay. And that is what I mean by short notice question. When you are saying short notice, you mean that these are the questions for which less than 10 days time has been given. Okay, so for the rest of the questions, much more time is given for the MPs to prepare the answers. So they don't come unprepared in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Okay, so short notice, less than 10 days का टाइम दिया जाता है टू प्रिपेयर ओरली आप इसका रिस्पॉन्स लेते हैं एंड दैट इज वाई अगेन सप्लीमेंट्री क्वेश्चंस आर आस्क्ड. Another thing that can be asked from you is that whether private members से भी पूछा जा सकता है क्या question. Can we ask question to private members as well? What are private members? Private members are those who are not a part of the Council of Ministers. Okay. So private members can also be asked this question. Private members can also be asked this question. ठीक है? So प्लीज राइट दिस डाउन. दीज आर द निटी-ग्रिटीज जिसमें सिर्फ यूपीएससी सवाल पूछने लगा है. ओके. देन सेकेंड डिवाइस ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट्री प्रोसीडिंग इज 0R. 0R. Now 0R is an informal device and it is actually an Indian invention. इंडियन इन्वेंशन. ये कहीं पे नहीं लिखा है as such. ठीक है. जैसे क्वेश्चन आर तो आपका रूल्स ऑफ प्रोसीजर में लिखा हुआ है. But 0R is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. But 0R is happening after the question R for matters of public importance. So it starts immediately after the question R. So don't get confused कि 0 नाम है तो सबसे पहले इसको लिया जाएगा. No, it happens after the question R. And overall, when was this introduced? क्वेश्चन आर में सारे तरीके के सवाल नहीं कंप्लीट हो पाते. सो 1962 से इसे इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था. हाउ कैन यू रिमेंबर दिस? यू कैन रिमेंबर दिस बाय रिमेंबरिंग दैट 1962 वाज आल्सो द ईयर ऑफ इंडो चाइना वॉर. तो उसके बाद कई सारे सवाल थे पूछने को एंड दैट इज वाई दिस एडिशनल डिवाइस ऑफ 0R was introduced, but it is not mentioned anywhere. Okay. Now, after this, you come to the topic of motions. Okay. Motions का जो topic है that we will cover through questions one by one. Now we have done the devices of parliamentary proceedings, है ना? And we will go on to the motions. Motions we'll cover through the questions. So let's now go on to the first question. Consider the following statements regarding limitation on the number of questions asked in Lok Sabha. Until the late 1960s, there was no limit on the number of unstarred questions an MP could ask in a day. The total number of questions asked by MPs in the starred and unstarred categories are put in a random ballot for selection. And from the ballot in Lok Sabha, 20 starred questions are picked for answering during the question hour. How many of the above statements are correct? इस क्वेश्चन में तीनों ही स्टेटमेंट्स करेक्ट है। ओके, 1960s तक आप कितने भी अनस्टार्ड क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते थे। प्लीज रिमेंबर, अनस्टार्ड क्वेश्चंस आर द वंस जिसमें आप रिटन रिस्पॉन्स देते हैं। सो बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स देन इट बिकेम वेरी वेरी इनएफिशिएंट, सो इस पे आपने कैप लगा दिया। द सेकेंड स्टेटमेंट विच लुक्स अ लिटिल डाइसी कि रैंडम बैलेट में आप कैसे इसको भर सकते हैं, यू कैन चूज, बट दिस इज एक्चुअली व्हाट हैपेंस इन द इंडियन पार्लियामेंट। दिस इज करेक्ट कि टोटल नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आस्क्ड बाय एमपीज इन द स्टार्ड एंड अनस्टार्ड कैटेगरीज, they are put in a random ballot and questions are selected on sort of a lottery basis. They are not given any precedence as such. And from the ballot in Lok Sabha, 20 starred questions are picked for answering during question hour. This is absolutely correct. Please write these 3 facts down. These are lesser known facts, but UPSC is getting into the procedural aspect of it, so you should be ready for it. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding the types of questions in the Indian Parliament. Short notice questions are answered in writing and do not allow supplementary questions. Starred questions are answered orally and allow for supplementary questions. And unstarred questions call for oral replies on the floor of the House. How many of the given statements are correct? First one we know is absolutely incorrect. Short notice questions, the questions which are given less than 10 days and demand an oral response. Starred questions, they are answered orally and allow for supplementary questions. We know this is correct. And unstarred question, these are the only ones out of the 3 questions which demand a written response. And wherever a written response will be there, no supplementary will be asked. So this one is incorrect. How many statements are correct? Only one. We are focusing on these because you will generally leave these questions, but it's important to revise them. Consider the following statements regarding the allocation of time for questions in Parliament. Starred questions receive the highest priority during question hour. Unstarred questions are answered immediately after the question hour, and short notice questions are taken up at the end of the question hour. How many of the above statements are correct? Go one by one. Even if you don't know the first question, even if you don't know the first statement, the word itself says starred question. It does have some sort of importance, right? Maybe more important. So if you take a leap of faith over here, you can say that first statement is correct, and absolutely it is correct that highest priority is given to the starred questions, because these are the questions which actually translate into a debate, right? They actually translate into a debate. So this is important. Then unstarred questions are answered immediately after the question hour? No. They are answered within the question hour after the starred questions. Okay, so starred questions have the immediate priority. Then we go to the unstarred questions. So second statement is incorrect. And the third statement is another fact that you should know, that short notice questions are taken up at the end of the question hour. Okay, so here how many statements become correct? Only 2 statements become correct. And eventually you need to get used to these only one, only 2 options, because UPSC really gave a shocker. About 50 questions from these kind of options. So be ready for them. Consider the following statements about starred questions in the Indian Parliament. Starred questions are answered in writing. Members are not allowed to ask supplementary questions after the answer is given. And starred questions can pertain to matters of public importance of urgent character. Very easy question for you by now. First is incorrect. It is answered orally. Second is incorrect. They are actually allowed. Third is correct, that of course starred question will be matter of public importance. So only one is correct over here. Next question. Consider the following statements about short notice questions in the Indian Parliament. Short notice questions are answered in writing. Members can ask supplementary questions on short notice questions, and these questions are put in regard to matters of public importance of an urgent character. How many of the above statements are correct? Do it very quickly. It is not answered in writing, it is answered orally. Members definitely can ask supplementary questions because they are answered orally. And yes, even here, the public importance aspects can be asked. So, only 2 is the correct answer. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding supplementary questions in the Indian Parliament. The supplementary questions are allowed for unstarred questions. Members can ask as many supplementary questions as they wish, and these questions are asked to seek further clarification on the primary question. How many of the given statements are correct? Go one by one. This is sort of a reversal. For earlier you were being asked that इसमें supplementary पूछ सकते हैं, नहीं पूछ सकते. Now you are being asked about the supplementary questions itself. So for unstarred questions, you know supplementaries are not allowed because you give written responses to it. So this is incorrect. Now, second one should be incorrect by the virtue of being such an exaggerated statement. That in the limited time period, how can you give the power to these to the MPs to ask as many supplementary questions as they want? That is not possible. Okay, so second is incorrect. And third is a very generic statement. It is absolutely correct that members, these are asked to seek further clarifications. Now, please know that the second statement, members can ask as many supplementary questions as they wish. This is not true because a single member can ask a maximum of 2 supplementary questions. Single member can ask a maximum of 2 supplementary questions, after which even if the question answer round is supposed to be carried forward, then it will be carried forward by doing 1 question per member now. So the initial person who has put up the question can ask 2 supplementary questions. If there are further questions on that answer, then 1 question per MP will be allowed by the speaker if the speaker so desires. And that is why speaker becomes very important. We'll talk about the office of speaker as well. So here only 1 statement is correct. I hope this is clear. Questions will keep on getting a little complicated. So just keep all your attention. Consider the following statements about supplementaries to parliamentary questions. Supplementaries are allowed to further probe the response given by the minister. Members can ask supplementaries on any topic during the question hour. And ministers can refuse to answer a supplementary question. You know this by now perfectly. How many of the given statements are correct? Definitely supplementary का मतलब ही ये होता है that it is to further probe the response given by minister. Yes. Then during the question hour, we have learned that there are 3 kind of questions, and in the unstarred questions, we are not allowed to ask supplementary. So second one is incorrect. And third one is actually correct, that if there is a supplementary question, a minister can rightfully so disagree or refuse to answer that particular question. So here, how many of it is correct? Only 2 are correct. Okay, please write this down, that a member can refuse to answer the question as well. Moving on, consider the following statements regarding question hour and 0 hour in the parliament. Question hour allows MPs to ask questions to ministers and seek accountability. 0 hour is a formal part of the rules of parliamentary procedure. And unstarred questions are answered orally on the floor of the house during question hour. How many of the above statements are correct? Go one by one. First is very generic, absolutely true. 0 hour is an Indian innovation. It is not a part of the rules of procedure. So 0 hour is not a formal part. So this is incorrect. And unstarred questions are answered orally? No, they are answered in writing. Why same information again and again? Because the same information has to be memorized by you again and again. And these are the topics on which you will not pay a lot of attention. Okay, so here how many of the given statements are correct? Only 1 statement is correct. Okay, question R, 0 hour is an informal device. Consider the following statements regarding no confidence motion. Now this is a new topic. No confidence motion is introduced in the Lok Sabha only. The government is required to resign if at least 50% of the members in the Lok Sabha support the motion. and a prior justification is not mandatory for moving the no confidence motion. How many of the given statements are correct? See, to answer this question, let's just finish off the topic of no confidence motion. You must have heard of this term. First of all, no confidence motion is not mentioned directly in the Indian Constitution. So not in Indian Constitution. This word, this term, no confidence motion is not mentioned in Indian Constitution. However, there is validity for this no confidence motion according to Article 75. Because Article 75 says that the Council of Ministers shall be responsible to the Lok Sabha. And if the Lok Sabha passes no confidence motion, then definitely Council of Ministers has to resign. So no confidence motion के बारे में ये बात लिखो कि it can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. So this statement becomes absolutely correct. राज्यसभा की तरफ जब accountability ही नहीं है तो राज्यसभा क्यों introduce करेगा? Why will the राज्यसभा introduce? It will not have the power. And these interlinkaging kind of questions have been asked, wherein you have been asked in UPSC, what are the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha? Okay, so no confidence motion is one of the exclusive powers of Lok Sabha. Another thing, it needs the support of at least 50 members. Support of 50 members. Because अगर एक इंसान के कहने पे आपने no confidence motion को अगर आपने approve कर दिया, तो then the entire day's activity are wasted, the entire day's time is wasted, and you know, every day when the parliament is running, crores of taxpayers' money is going to that, right? So you cannot afford to waste it. So support of 50 members is needed. Then even after the support, the no confidence motion needs to be passed by a simple majority. That means more than 50% of the people need to agree that okay, we are not trusting in this government. And that is why even the, let's say the Narendra Modi government also has faced the no confidence motion, because 50 people agreed that okay, we will more than 50 people agreed that we will present this no confidence motion, but it was not passed because they have such a thundering majority that it is not possible that even a simple majority comes up, right? Again, another thing that you need to write is that no confidence motion can be passed only against entire Council of Ministers. Only against the entire Council of Ministers, not against a single member. Okay, we will talk about other motions like the censure motion, etc. These are the motions which can be passed against individual ministers also. But this no confidence motion, that cannot be. It will be passed only, it will be presented only against the entire Council of Ministers. So there is no probability that okay, no confidence motion is passed, so these many members will resign, others will not resign. No. The entire Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister will have to resign. Another thing about no confidence motion, it does not need to give reasons. Does not need to give reasons. Okay. So whenever no confidence motion is passed, it's presented, there are a number of reasons that the opposition gives that okay, this policy was not good, this policy was not good, but a singular reason is not given. Okay, so a reason is not necessary. So these are the things you need to write for no confidence motion. The government is required to resign if at least 50% of members of Lok Sabha join the motion. Yes. And a prior justification is not mandatory for moving the no confidence motion. This prior justification means that it's not the justification of president. It is a prior reasoning. So yes, this is absolutely correct that no prior reasoning is required for people, for the MPs to present this no confidence motion. So here C is correct because all three statements are correct. And the topic of no confidence motion is done. Okay. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding amendments to resolutions or motions in the Parliament. Members may give notice of amendments to resolutions or motion without a notice period. The branch officer concerned is responsible for preparing a supplementary note for amendments, and amendments to resolutions or motions are not discussed in the House. How many of the given statements are correct? See, if you see the first statement, it is a bit of an overstatement because nothing in the Indian Parliament actually happens without a notice period. Okay. And if you saw the short notice questions, even the short notice questions require a notice of 10 days. Okay. So, first statement, there is no way that it can be correct. So, it is incorrect, definitely. Branch officer concerned is responsible for preparing a supplementary note. This is a very generic statement that branch officer concerned will be responsible. This is correct. And amendments to resolutions or motions are not discussed. Why would an amendment be presented and not be discussed in the parliament itself? It will be discussed, right? That is why it is being presented. So, whenever a motion or a resolution is passed, it is presented and an amendment to that is presented, then definitely it will be discussed and it is very important. So, only one statement is correct. Now, since we are talking about motions, now you put up a heading, write motions. Okay, motions in Indian Parliament, there are various kind of motions. Basically, whenever you want to discuss a matter of public importance, whenever you want to discuss, whenever you want to take up the time of the Indian Parliament, you cannot do it without, unless you are doing it on a motion. Okay, so here is the fact that the motions will be accepted only by the consent of presiding officer. Okay, so let's say you want to discuss about women's safety in the country. If the presiding officer has not accepted your motion that you have presented, then your motion will not be discussed. And that is why the presiding officer has such an important role in the Indian Parliament. Overall, there are three categories of motions, three types of motions, and questions can be asked on this. And why I'm making you write this is because so that you can understand how these notes can be made. You don't have to write long sentences only. The notes can be made pretty much in a basic manner by these flowchart kind of things. And because you are making handwritten notes, you have that kind of flexibility. So the first is substantive motion. Substantive motion basically means it has some substance to it and it is self-sustaining motion. Like I told you, women's safety. Okay. So it is a independent motion. It is self-sustaining. It does not need another motion to sustain itself. Okay. This is substantive motion. Then there is substitute motion. Substitute motion. What is the substitute of something? When you want to replace something. So substitute motion is an alternative motion. So let's say you were discussing about women's safety. Now you want to substitute that motion and discuss about the overall public spaces, right? And the speaker accepts that, okay, we discuss about public spaces because discussing about public spaces also has its impact on women's safety. So I approve. That becomes a substitute motion. Then the third is subsidiary motion. Subsidiary motion, and subsidiary means that it is something that is junior, something that is attached to something. What is a subsidiary? It itself does not have any meaning. It is attached to a substantive motion, attached to another motion. So let's say within the women's safety discussion itself, you talk about the aspect of marital rape. Okay, you talk about marital rape and whether it should be. So talking about marital rape cannot happen without the substantive motion, or women's safety ko lekar bhi, if you are talking about age of consent or things like that. You first take up a substantive motion and then you can keep on adding subsidiary motion to itself, right? So this is very important. Three categories, three broad categories. And then इस subsidiary में ही तीन तरह के sub motions भी आते हैं. One is an ancillary motion. Ancillary motion का क्या मतलब होता है? What is an ancillary industry? Basically आप एक अगर हाईवे बना रहे हो तो उसके आसपास if there are dhabas coming up, so those becomes ancillary industries. and if you want something and you are wanting a particular mall, and the transportation industry around it becomes an ancillary industry, right? It substitutes it, it keeps on adding to it, it keeps on taking from the main industry also. So ancillary motion is like that. It is a subsidiary motion and it aids the original motion. Okay. The second is superseding motion. The is superseding motion, and it is somewhat like the substitute motion, but it is not taking over the entire original motion. It is basically that, okay, we were discussing within women's safety, we were discussing about the Nirbhaya case. Let's just supersede this discussion and go about talking about, let's say, the compulsory self-defense classes. Okay, these kind of things. So that is a superseding motion, part of subsidiary motion itself. And within this, an amendment motion is also presented, that I want to amend this particular subsidiary motion that I added. So the subsidiary motion, when amended, is again a subsidiary motion only. It does not become a substantive motion. Please understand, subsidiary motion in itself does not have any existence of its own without the actual motion itself, without the substantive motion itself. So these are the broad categories: substantive, substitute, and subsidiary. Okay, so I hope you will remember this. Now let's again go about motion by motion. So this question is about calling attention motion. Consider the following statements about calling attention notices in the Parliament. A member may give a notice to call attention to a matter of urgent public importance and request a minister to make a statement. Copies of calling attention notices are endorsed only to the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. And when a calling attention notice is raised in the House, the minister concerned must make a lengthy statement. How many of the given statements is correct? So just write down calling attention motion. First of all, just like the 0R, the calling attention motion is an Indian innovation. Please write down, it is an Indian innovation. Okay. So you can just imagine how good we are at calling the attention of people, right? We thump the desks and we sometimes, just keep on smashing chairs also here and there. So calling attention is not very difficult for us. That is calling attention motion. You can just remember by that it is an Indian innovation. And this statement is definitely correct. First one, that a member may give a notice for a matter of public importance, urgent public importance. So let's say a public riot has happened, or any issue that has happened, urgent public importance, calling attention motion can be presented. But again, speaker has a very important role over here, because even if a calling attention motion is presented, if the speaker does not accept that motion will not come into discussion, right? So this is there. It being an Indian innovation does not mean that it is a informal device. Okay, 0R is not mentioned anywhere, right? But this calling attention motion is mentioned in the rules of procedure. Okay, and these kind of details are very important. This calling attention motion is present in the rule of procedure. So you can write that. Then second statement is very restrictive in nature. Why will the calling attention notice be endorsed only to the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs? It will also be endorsed to the minister against whom the motion is being presented, right? Whichever ministry has made an error, has made a big goof up, that ministry is supposed to get the copies of the calling attention motion. So second is incorrect. And when a calling attention notice is raised in the House, a minister concerned must make a lengthy statement. UPSC, whenever it is giving such kind of vague things, what is a lengthy statement? Lengthy does not mean anything. No R's are given, right? So mostly these become incorrect. So what happens is that either the minister against whom this motion is being presented, Either the minister can make the statement at that point or ask for time to give the statement at a later date also. Right? Because you need to understand whatever is spoken in the Indian Parliament gains nationwide relevance, nationwide appearance, nationwide publicity. So if the minister thinks that minister is not well versed or minister is not well prepared to answer that question, it is within the right of that minister to actually deny answering at that point and ask for a later date from the speaker. Again, the importance of speaker. So, third statement is incorrect. Here, only one statement is correct. I hope you understand. And even if you did not remember the nitty-gritties of it, you can actually use your common sense and see that second and third statement can be very easily eliminated. Okay. So, I hope this is clear. Next one. Consider the following statements about no day yet named motion in the Indian Parliament. A no day yet named motion is one for which no day for discussion has been fixed. The number of copies of no day yet named motions to be sent to the Parliament Secretariat may vary, and these motions can be taken up in the House at any time without prior notice. How many of the given statement are correct? Just apply your common sense seeing the name of the motion. It is no day yet named motion. So no day yet named motion is definitely implying that whichever is the matter of discussion, we have not named a day for the discussion yet, but we do know that this topic needs to be discussed. Right? So first statement is absolutely correct, and it is in fact the definition of no day yet named motion, one for which no day for discussion has been fixed. The second statement, which says that the number of copies of no day yet named motions to be sent to the Parliamentary Secretariat may vary. This is pretty much possible that sometimes you want these many number of copies, sometimes you want more copies, sometimes you want less. It may vary. And in UPSC, this may vary, this may word actually gives you a lot of scope that yes, the statement can be correct somewhat, right? So that's why the second statement is correct. Now, these motions can be taken up in the House at any time without prior notice? No. This cannot happen. I have already told you that in the Indian Parliament, nothing can happen without notice. So that's why only two statements here are correct. So no day yet named motion. This is very small, very short topic. You don't need to lose a lot of sleep over it. Fine. Next one. Consider the following statements about adjournment motion in the Indian Parliament. Adjournment motions require the support of at least 50 members to be admitted. The discussion on an adjournment motion lasts for a minimum of 2 hours. An adjournment motion are used to revive discussion on matters that have been previously discussed in the same session. How many of the given statements are correct? Adjournment motion is a very important motion, and that is why you need to make proper notes out of it. See, the thing is that adjournment motion is not a very usual device. Like if I were to say calling attention motion ho gaya, these kind of motions, they are used usually. But if you talk about adjournment motion, it is sort of an extraordinary device. So please make a note out of it, what things you need to know about adjournment motion. The first thing is that yes, it does need the support of 50 members. So you can see how important it is. 50 members का support आपको तब भी चाहिए होता है when you want to pass a no confidence motion. And even for an adjournment motion you need it. So you can imagine how important this motion is and how crucial it is. Right? So this needs to be passed by 50 members. Then second thing is, just like no confidence motion, Rajya Sabha is not permitted to pass this motion. Rajya Sabha does not have the power to pass this particular motion. Only Lok Sabha is permitted. And that is why we say that it is an extraordinary device. Write this. Not every motion is an extraordinary device, but this definitely is an extraordinary device. When an adjournment motion is passed, it sort of gives a reflection that there is a censure against the government. Censure means confidence against the government is declining, accountability is reducing, right? So whenever this particular discussion comes into the picture, the discussion for adjournment motion should not be less than 2 hours 30 minutes. 2 hours 30 minutes minimum discussion should happen, because all the other matter of the house is actually set aside when this adjournment motion is accepted, and that is why it is very important that it is discussed for minimum 2 hours 30 minutes. So this is there. Then another thing is very important, that it should cover only one matter. Only one matter. Let's say internationally there has been a very big United Nations resolution that India has voted on, and the parliament is not okay with the way we have voted on it. Let's say the Israel-Palestine issue or whatever. So the matter of adjournment motion cannot be generic in nature, right? Like the no confidence motion. It has to be one matter. It cannot be multiple matters. So this is very important. So here, first statement is absolutely correct. Second statement is incorrect because the discussion needs to go for 2 hours 30 minutes. Okay. And adjournment motion are used to revive discussion on matters that have been previously discussed. No. It has to have a fresh matter. It has to have a matter of urgent public importance, and that is why this is incorrect. So only one statement is correct over here. I hope you are able to understand how important. So after no confidence motion, it is the adjournment motion which is important. Does that mean that adoption of adjournment motion will lead to resignation of the government? No. That is the no confidence motion only. That is separate. Okay. So that is there. Next question. Consider the following statements about subsidiary motions in the Indian Parliament. Subsidiary motions can be used to proceed with various kinds of parliamentary business. Superseding motions are moved in the course of debate on another issue, and amendment motions can modify the original motion in its entirety. How many of the given statements are correct? Go one by one, find the most incorrect statement first. If you are passing an amendment motion, if you are adopting an amendment motion, it does not mean that you will completely amend the original discussion. Let's say if women safety is being talked about, you cannot completely change the topic from women safety to space. Are you understanding? There has to be some parts can be amended, and that is why it is an amendment motion. It is not a superseding motion. It is not a substitute motion as well. So the third statement becomes incorrect. Entirety में आप नहीं कर सकते. Then superseding motions are moved in the course of debate on another issue. This is actually correct, because superseding means that you are actually replacing the debate with something else. Now, this is correct. So here the answer becomes only 2. I hope you understand how it is only 2. And by now you would be able to understand that you cannot answer the questions in their nitty-gritties if you have not revised it enough. I mean, ये ऐसी चीजें नहीं हैं कि आपको हमेशा के लिए याद रह जाएंगी एक बार पढ़ के. So it is your responsibility that you keep on revising this stuff again and again, because that is how you will actually end up scoring those kind of marks over there. Right? So that is there. So only 2 is the correct answer. Consider the following statements about the privilege motions in the Indian Parliament. The privilege motions are concerned with breach of parliamentary privileges by a minister. These motions are moved by a member when they feel that a minister has withheld the facts or provided wrong information. And the purpose of privilege motion is to censure the concerned minister. How many of the given statement are correct? Privilege motion has been very much in news, and there was this entire debate whether the case of Mahua Moitra should have been sent to the privileges committee or the ethics committee, because there was overlap in there. So privilege motion is very much expected. Now we all know that the members of parliament enjoy parliamentary privileges under Article 105. Okay. But those kind of privileges, if they violate, then there has to be some inquiry on that. And how does that inquiry start? When privilege motion is adopted and accepted by the speaker itself. Okay. So privilege motion ka purpose hi yahi hai, as the first statement is saying, that whenever the breach of parliamentary privileges happen, it should be adopted and it will be against a minister. These motions are moved by a member when they feel minister has withheld facts, provided wrong information. Yes, you are a public representative. You are not supposed to withhold the public information or give wrong information to the public. So that is why even the second one is correct. And purpose is to censure the concerned minister. Yes, definitely the purpose is to censure the concerned minister. So all the three statements are correct over here. Okay. Next question. Consider the following statements about calling attention motions in the Indian Parliament. Calling attention motion was introduced in the Parliament in 1954. A member may give a notice to call attention of a matter of recent public importance, and the discussion on calling attention motion can continue for as long as needed. How many of the given statements are correct? Factual thing, yes, calling attention motion was introduced in 1954. So this is very, very important. Then a member may give a notice to call attention. This is also very generic and very true, that general public importance का matter है तो उसमें आप calling attention motion ला सकते हैं. The third one, again a vague thing, for as long as needed. How can any motion go on for as long as needed? It is not possible, right? So only two statements are correct over here. Calling attention motion, we have already discussed it. So I hope there is no doubt regarding it. Next, consider the following statements about closure motion in the Indian Parliament. Closure motion is a motion to cut short the debate on a matter. Kangaroo closure is used to skip over and pass important clauses of a bill or resolution. And guillotine closure is when there is abundance of time available. How many of the given statements are correct? Closure नाम से ही आपको क्या समझ में आता है? That you want to close a matter. You want to put an end to a debate. So first one is absolutely incorrect, that closure motion is a motion to cut short the debate on a matter. Absolutely generic and correct statement. Now, even in closure motions, there are different kinds of closure motions. So for example, there is simple closure. Simple closure is that you are discussing a matter and you want to cut it short, and why you want to cut it short is because it has already been sufficiently discussed. So you are not short on time or anything, but this matter has been discussed already sufficiently. So you don't need to bring more time on it. You know, you cannot afford to give more time on it that way. So simple closure. Then you have closure by compartments. By compartments, right? So by compartments means that whatever legislation, whatever discussion you are having, you break down that discussion in a few headers, and then you keep on voting on those headers accordingly, right? That is closure by compartments. So that is closure by compartments. The third thing which is mentioned over here is that kangaroo closure. What does a kangaroo do? A kangaroo or a kangaroo, however you want to call it, the kangaroo actually keeps on jumping. So kangaroo closure is used to skip over and pass important clauses of a bill or resolution is absolutely correct. That is what a kangaroo closure is, that you just keep on doing the important stuff and you keep on jumping over the provisions. You just don't discuss, and most of the provisions are discussed this way. Okay, the kangaroo closure. And then there is guillotine closure. Guillotine, what is guillotine? During the French Revolution, guillotine word was very much in vogue because Robespierre used to just guillotine people publicly. That means just cut off their head. है ना? So guillotine means that when you are short on time, then you take all the provisions together and you pass them together. You cut off all the provisions together. So guillotine closure cannot happen when there is abundance of time. This is absolutely false. Okay, so only two statements are correct over here. I hope you will remember this. Next, consider the following statements about private members' resolutions in Indian Parliament. Private members' resolutions are not subject to notice period. The texts of private members' resolutions are not sent to the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, and private members' resolution may be opposed if members do not agree to withdraw them. How many of the given statements are correct? I have already told you nothing can happen in the parliament without a notice period. So this is absolutely incorrect. Again, whatever is the private member's bill, it has to be sent to the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, the text of it. That is the purpose of Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. What if there is obscene language in the bill that is being presented, right? So you cannot risk that. That is the dignity of the parliament, and that is why it is very important. Third one is absolutely correct. It's a generic statement. So here only one statement is correct, that even if it is a private member's bill, it can be opposed if members do not agree to withdraw them, right? Next question. Now we have come to the topic of money bills and finance bills. So consider the following statements regarding money bills and finance bills. Money bills exclusively deal with taxation matters and government expenditure. Finance bills are the sole prerogative of the lower house of the legislature, and the upper house has the authority to make amendments to the money bills. How many of the given statements are correct? See, money bill as a order, as a device, is the sole prerogative of the Lok Sabha. So please understand, money bill which is given in Article 110, it is the sole prerogative of the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha can only delay this particular bill by 14 days. That's it. Okay. Now there is confusion. There are two kinds of money bills as such. One is finance bill. And there was a question that was asked on this. Finance bill is a part of the budget, the annual financial statement. So Article 112 ka part hai finance bill. And one is financial bill. Please understand, these are two different things. जब सवाल आया यूपीएससी 2023 में, सवाल आया फाइनेंस बिल पे, which is a money bill, right? So finance bill will always be a money bill, but financial bill will not always be a money bill. Okay, so here money bill exclusively deals with the taxation matters. This is correct. Finance bills, not financial bills. Finance bills are the sole prerogative of lower house. Even this is absolutely correct, because voting on the budget is done only by the Lok Sabha, not by the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so finance bill is where are you getting the finance from? What are your receipts? Okay, so this is correct. The upper house has authority to make amendments to money bill? No. As I already told you, it can only delay the money bill for 14 days, nothing more than that. So that is there. Another thing, what is the prerogative of president? First of all, money bill will be introduced only with the prior consent, prior assent of the president. Second is that the money bill can be rejected. Money bill can be accepted, of course, but it cannot be sent back. Cannot be sent back. This is very important. And why it cannot be sent back? Because obviously it has been introduced by the permission, by the assent, by the consent of the parliament itself. So how can it be sent back? Right? And now that Rajya Sabha has no power over money bill whatsoever, that is why there is no provision for joint sitting also. Okay, so whatever is there for the money bill is there for the finance bill also, because finance bill is a money bill only. But if you talk about the financial bill under Article 117, there are two kinds of financial bill. There is financial bill 1, there is financial bill 2. Very slight differences in them. And please remember, the financial bill 1 is nearer to being a money bill, and financial bill 2 is farther away from being a money bill. It is more of a ordinary legislation. But in both of them, you do not need the certification of speaker to certify that, okay, this is a money bill. What is the major power of speaker? That speaker will decide whether this bill is a money bill or not. So Aadhaar debate was regarding that, right? That speaker said that this Aadhaar bill is a money bill. So यहाँ पे चाहे 1 हो चाहे 2 हो, no role of speaker in actually identifying कि ये financial bill है या नहीं. So speakers certificate to identify whether it's a financial bill or not is not required. Financial bill 1, I told you, is nearer to the money bill. So it can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Introduced only in Lok Sabha. The financial bill 2 can be introduced in either house. Okay, it is almost like a normal bill. There is nothing special about it as such. Only in the Lok Sabha. Then we talk about the presidential recommendation, the prior recommendation of the president. As I told you, the first one is nearer to the money bill. So here it is required at the stage of introduction. The presidential assent is required for the introduction of the bill. Here the presidential approval is required during the discussion. Presidential approval is required during the discussion. Then it comes to the power of Rajya Sabha. So Rajya Sabha has equal powers when it comes to the financial bills. Rajya Sabha has equal powers, can reject it also, can amend it also, very, very importantly. Okay, so that is there. And regarding joint sitting, because Rajya Sabha has equal powers, that is why joint sitting is allowed in both these bills, Financial Bill 1 and Financial Bill 2. So please remember, UPSC confused you by writing finance bill instead of the financial bill. Financial bill is different, finance bill is different, and you need to remember that very carefully. Okay, so that is there. Now answer this. Let's just finish this first. Finance bill are the sole prerogative. Yes, absolutely correct. So here only 2 is the correct answer. Okay. Next one. Money bills can be introduced in both the lower house and the upper house of the legislature. The upper house has the power to make amendments to money bills, and the money bills are primarily related to matters of taxation and government expenditure. How many of the above statements are correct? First statement is absolutely incorrect. You know it cannot be introduced in Rajya Sabha. Second statement is again incorrect because the upper house can definitely discuss it, but upper house cannot amend it. Third one is very generic, very correct. So here only one statement is correct. Very easy question for you by now. Next question. Consider the following statements. The Rajya Sabha can detain a money bill for a maximum period of 6 months. The Rajya Sabha cannot amend a money bill. It can only make recommendations that must be accepted by the Lok Sabha. And the Lok Sabha can approve a money bill even if it is not approved by the Rajya Sabha. How many of the given statements are correct? Rajya Sabha can detain a money bill, but not for 6 months. It is just for 14 days. Pretty much powerless. Okay. So this statement is incorrect. Or even if a single word of a statement is incorrect, the entire statement is incorrect. Don't forget this reality. Rajya Sabha cannot amend a money bill. It can only make recommendations that theek hai. But that must be accepted by Lok Sabha? No. Lok Sabha can either accept or reject and simply move on with the bill. So this is incorrect. Then third, Lok Sabha can approve a money bill even if it is not approved by the Rajya Sabha. This is absolutely correct. So only one statement is correct. I hope you will remember this. There's nothing to remember as such. I hope you will be able to apply the logic to this, right? Last question for the day. Consider the following statements about the scope of money bills and finance bills. Money bills have a broader scope and can encompass a wide range of financial matters. Finance bills focus primarily on fiscal matters and government finances, and both money bills and finance bills deal with the revenue and expenditure of the government. How many of the given statements are correct? It is again written finance bill, not financial bill. So please be very careful while answering. See, money bills have a broader scope and can encompass a wider range. This is absolutely correct, right? Finance bill is only the finance side of your budget. Then finance bill focuses primarily on fiscal matters and government finances. This is also correct. But both money bill and finance bill deal with revenue and expenditure of the government. No. Money bill does not deal with revenue and expenditure side of the government. Finance bill deals with the revenue side of the government. Where will the revenue come from? So here only two statements are correct over here. Okay, only two statements are correct over here. I hope you will be able to understand why. So finance bill, financial bill, these two are different things. Do not forget this. Okay. All right. So with this, we are at the end of this class. I know this has been a very long class for you. We don't usually have such long classes, and Parliament is a very long topic, so it is still not done. A lot of it is still it's still pending that way. But do keep watching these classes. If you are benefiting from them, then you can share them with your peers, your companions, your friends who are preparing also. And this entire course, this Revise Entire Prelims syllabus through 3000 plus MCQs is designed in this way that you can actually cover all these subjects: the modern history, Indian polity, geography, economy, art and culture, current affairs, ancient medieval, environment, ecology, and science and tech in a very comprehensive manner. So if you think that answering questions and making these kind of notes is helping you, then you can contact on this number and go on this website to know more about this particular course, right? So that is all for today's class. I hope you derived some value out of it. Next class will be the second part of Parliament. So I'll see you all in the next class. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.